Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Rat Lab podcast. Yeah, that's right. I'm making a second one. I've decided I'm going to keep doing this for a multitude of reasons. I suppose the first thing to mention would be, of course, any channel updates or just life updates and that sort of thing. And that would partially explain why I'm continuing to do the podcast right now instead of, the next review video, which I am making. I still have to play through a decent chunk of the game that I've got going right now, which again, I don't want to spoil, which is also why I don't stream the games that I play, because I don't want to spoil them. When the review comes out, I like the review to be a little surprise, because it's whatever game I feel like at the time, so who knows what it might be. But, just a few explainers here. So, as of recording, and probably around the time this is coming out, I am on my very last week of my current college quarter. So the very last stuff that I have to do for college for the year. Thankfully, I don't have any actual exams. It's all just write-ups and things like that I have to turn in. So I don't have to go into the university or anything to do physical exams or anything like that. But I do have a few things that I need to finish up first, and balancing that alongside other things that are happening in December right now leading up to Christmas, events that I want to do, and other things I'm spending my free time on. I'm taking a slight pause from the review thing right now just to keep everything in track, make sure I've got everything settled, and once this college stuff is finished, once it's all done, which should be by the end of this week, by like Sunday, Monday, well, Monday's next week, but you get the idea. But by the end of next week, everything should be handled. Everything should be finished. The quarter should be finished. I shouldn't have any more college stuff to do for the entire year, which is the month of December, but still. So, with that, I should be able to get back to focusing more on the review. Which, again, the only little teaser that I'll give you as to what the review is that it is an original Xbox game. Sorry about that, if you heard that in my throat. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, it is an original Xbox game that I'm reviewing, and it's like a weird proto-Fable thing. I talked about this in the last episode, but yeah, still working on that, still having to play through the game. The game is... It's a little frustrating to play. I'm sorry if my volume quiets down on occasion. That's me like turning away from the mic and stuff like that. But yeah, the game is something. It seems long. It feels long, but I think that's mostly down to the fact that the pacing kind of sucks. There are save points in the game, right? This is an old school game. You can't just save whenever you wanted. You had to save at specific locations. And right now, the current pacing between save points is awful. I had to repeat this one specific section over and over again. I'm probably going to bring it up in the review. I had to do this section over and over again where I'm constantly having to confront a room filled to the brim with enemies that I feel like I shouldn't be dealing with right now. Simply because there are so many of them. So I had to cheese my way through clearing the room so that I could finally interact with the thing I needed to and then get out. So, yeah, I finally did that, so now I can progress the game normally again. So that should hopefully speed up my process of playing through the game and really getting a feel for what it's like. But that will likely deserve a mention in itself. So, look out for that. Should be done within the next 2 weeks or so after the upload of this podcast episode. So, yeah. That's about it right now as far as updates go. It's only been a week since the last episode, so it's not like anything crazy has gone down since then, right? But yeah, that is my current situation. As far as actual, stuff goes, I need to find my notepad folder again because I actually have things written down. Sorry if you hear a clicking noise, that's what that is. That's me searching my notepad folder for, where is it? There it is. I straight up have I have a little, I imagine most podcasters have this. I have a text file that's just called podcasttopics.txt. Um, so just it's a list that I'm constantly changing of podcast topics, things for me to talk about while I'm here. And yeah, it helps keeps the this is why I do multiple takes on the reviews, by the way. I screw this stuff up all the time, even when I'm reading from a script. Um, but yeah, it helps keep the flow going. Always having a topic on hand, it helps keep the flow, especially if you're like me and you are currently a solo podcaster. You don't have a co host or a guest or anything like that. You gotta find ways to keep the flow going. So, yeah, there's your little behind the scenes on how podcasts may or may not do things depending on the individual. It's all really an individual thing, really. We all do things in our own little ways. Sure, there are some standards, but if you make something work without following the standards, that's fine. That's totally fine. You don't need to worry about that. So, as far as topics go, a few of these, the list is not in priority order. The thing I want to talk about immediately right now is Digimon. I want to talk about the Digimon card game because I am very passionate about it right now. I have built multiple decks at this point for the Digimon card game. I regularly participate at my locals. I'm going to go to a locals this weekend, as well as a next weekend. Let me double check my calendar. Yes, next weekend. So both this weekend and next weekend, I'm going to be going to some locals. One of them is a special Christmas tournament, which is what I'm preparing my meta deck for. And the other one's just a casual free play thing where I'm probably going to be testing my meta deck around there, at least in person. I've tested it online for a little bit, and that's gotten some pretty funny stories, actually. What was it? So, for context, in the Digimon TCG, I am playing my meta deck, and honestly, at this point, I think my favorite deck is the Royal Knights deck, which, for anyone who doesn't know what Digimon or the Digimon TCG, the Royal Knights in Digimon are these collection, I don't remember the specific number of them. They are this group of really powerful level 6 and level 7 Digimon, which are like the highest level a Digimon can, Digivolve to. Um, but specifically, the Royal Knights were Digimon created by this supercomputer that basically runs the digital world called, I believe originally in Japanese it's called Yggdrasil, like the World Tree, which makes sense, but for some reason it got changed to Kingdrasil. But yeah, oh well. But it basically, in Kingdrasil, the computer basically concluded the digital world is overpopulated. It needs to be purged. And so it created something called the X virus. And it straight up just kills life. It just kills effectively all life in the digital world, not universe, but world. Whatever it infects, it just kills effectively, right? And however, there were a number of Digimon in this new post-apocalyptic world that developed something called the X antibody, where they essentially either obtained the X antibody or they became natural carriers of it, and they became immune to the X virus, and so now they're surviving in this new apocalyptic digital world that is slowly being purged by Kingdrasil. And so, to oversee the purge and ensure that everything is destroyed and the overpopulation problem is solved by setting the population to zero, Kingdrasil creates the Royal Knights, which are Digimon who have existed in previous Digimon series as Digivolutions of various protagonists and things like that, or they haven't, depends. I don't know the lore behind all of them. But in the context of Kingdrasil, Kingdrasil creates them as his royal knights to oversee the purge and exterminate any other Digimon they find. And so, in the Digimon TCG, the Royal Knights deck is you using Kingdrasil and the various Royal Knights, among a few other cards, to sort of do a similar thing. But it's actually, I find the deck to be very interesting. I find it very interesting because it completely subverts it. Not, well, I don't want to say subverts. That makes it sound like more. Makes it sound more politically charged, I guess, than it really is, because it's just a game mechanic. It just it messes with, it toys with the mechanics of the Digimon card game in a very interesting way that is not only fun to do, but is also good. Like, it's actually a good deck. It's not like top tier meta, but it pretty consistently wins tournaments. And so now I've workshopped my own version of the deck that is liable is likely to see some changes over time, depending on what cards I get my hands on, or what cards seem to work worse than others, better than others, etc. Right? Because there are a number of Royal Knights, and I know there are a few Royal Knight cards that are just not in this deck at all. Mainly because I didn't have them on hand. Dynasmon, I'm looking at you. I know that's a really bad idea. I've looked at Dynasmon. It absolutely has a place in the deck, and I can very much see certain cards that I could replace with Dynasmon. But when I was building this deck originally, I didn't have Dynasmon on hand, and by the time I was ordering cards on TCG Player, I completely forgot Dynasmon even existed. So, oh well. Yeah. So I'll just have to deal with that in the future. That's a future me thing. Dynasmons are cheap anyway. I can probably trade a guy for them with cheap cards. It's fine. But I want to see how the deck goes on its own. Just today, like literally a few minutes before I started recording the podcast, I got the last 2 cards that I needed printed out as proxies. I do have the actual 2 cards ordered and on the way. Sorry about that. I might be a little sniffly right now. It's cold out. And I was just outside. I just got back home from seeing a movie. Yeah, I saw the Monty Python movie. Oh, now that was fun. I'll get into that later. But yeah, I printed out the last 2 cards that I needed, which I ordered, and they're on the way. But I wanted to make sure I have them on hand, just in case they don't arrive soon enough. And the 2 cards that I needed were Omnimons. The BT13 Omnimons, specifically. And the reason I needed those 2 is because Omnimon is not only a secret rare, but he is a secret rare that is required to have 4 of in the deck for the deck to function properly. Because Omnimon is your win con. He is your win condition. The entire point of the deck is you have Yggdrasil in your little egg area, your raising area, right? Or in English, it's called the breeding area, but I don't like the term. I prefer raising area much more. So you put Yggdrasil in there, and he has 3 primary effects. 1, you cannot Digivolve. It does not matter, because none of these Digimon can Digivolve into each other anyway. Aside from, like, Omnimon, but you're not going to be doing that. 2 is that not every time, but the first time on your turn that you play a Royal Knight card, you reduce that play cost by 4, and then add 1 to that reduction for each card that is underneath Yggdrasil in his stack. Right? And then the third effect is that at the beginning of your main phase, so after the breeding phase, after the egg and draw and all that, you then reveal the top card of your egg deck, which is where Yggdrasil comes from. He's a Digi-Egg, which you can only have 4 of, because you can only have 4 of the same Digimon, right? So you reveal the top card, and then put that card alongside any other Royal Knight card that is currently in your battle area, and you put them all underneath the Yggdrasil, right? And so that's your way of constantly increasing your play cost reduction. And so the idea is you're playing the cheaper Royal Knights first, getting them under the stack in the early game, and then eventually you'll have a cost reduction that will allow you to either play some more Royal Knights for free, or play the really good ones for super cheap. And that way you're just building up this cost reduction, and you're basically loading a gun in the form of Yggdrasil by putting all of these knights under the stack. And there's a few extra things here and there, like there's an option card, which is Digimon's version of a spell card, called Royal Knights of the Purge, which allows you to basically just, when you play it initially, you draw 1 and then put a Royal Knight from your hand at the, you put any Digimon card, but you want to put a Royal Knight from your hand underneath Yggdrasil. And then on your next turn, You can then trash that card because it goes into your battle area. It sits in your back corner. You can then trash the option card to then take a Royal Knight from under Kangersil and play them for free, but they don't get their on play effects, but they do gain rush, which means they get to attack the turn that they're played. So it's all very, very good. It's very, very good. Um, and that's an extra little thing you can do. The main thing you're doing is wanting to load up Kangersil as much as possible while preventing your opponent from, hitting you. At which point, you eventually get your hands on an Omnimon, and then you play the Omnimon for cheap, making sure that it's still your turn when you play him. And then after that, the BT-13 Omnimon has two options. Either to destroy a Digimon, delete a Digimon, or to play one of each unique Royal Knight from under Kangersil for free all at the same time, with all of their effects active, including their on-plays, and they all gain rush, meaning they all get to attack. So your goal is to essentially build up, load up your shotgun, your metaphorical shotgun, in the form of Kangersil, and then eventually play Omnimon, shotgun and fire the shotgun, playing all of your unique Royal Knights at the exact same time, and then just have them all swing at your opponent until they have nothing left and they just lose. That's the way you play Royal Knights. It is simultaneously janky and meta at the same time. It is really good. Really good. It does occasionally win regionals and stuff like that. I wouldn't say, well, win is a strong word. I haven't seen one get first place, but it is a strong contender. It has the potential to win a lot, right? It very much has the potential to win a lot, and so that's why I really like it. It fits that perfect balance of being both good and like fun and weird. It's not one of those like sweaty meta decks that card games have that's just not fun to play against or play as, because you're just going through the motions over and over, just repeating this calculated pattern, blah, blah, blah. And it's not fun unless your idea of fun is just dominating the opponent the whole time. With the Royal Knights deck, it's weird because, you're not using one of the game's primary mechanics, Digivolution, right? But at the same time, and that part makes it fun, right? Because that means you have to rethink the way you play the game. You have to rethink your concept of how this game functions to be able to actually play Royal Knights correctly. But then at the same time, it's good because the cards you're playing are really good cards. Like, each of the Royal Knights are really good. Some are better than others, obviously, but they're all really, really good. And so and the fact that the metaphorical shotgun of Kangersil is loaded in the breeding area, the raising area, means that he can't be touched. There isn't a card in the game that can touch anything in the breeding area at all. Just straight up at all. It is entirely free, so there's nothing the opponent can do. The longer the longer more time goes on, more turns go by, the more loaded Kangersil becomes, and the more dangerous it becomes to have to deal with that, just waiting for the Omnimon to play, right? The only thing the opponent can do is try to eliminate the Royal Knights while they're in the battle area on the turn that they're played before your opponent's next turn. Otherwise, they'll go into Kangersil, and your opponent will have advanced a step in their battle plan, right? That's how you do it. And so it's a fun back and forth. It doesn't completely take control of the game away from the opponent. The opponent has to strategize and figure out how am I going to get rid of these Royal Knights? And the Royal Knight player has to figure out, is the opponent going to be able to take out my Royal Knights? And how fast can I load up Kangersil? And all that stuff, right? And that's why the deck also has a few extra things. The deck has, my version of the deck has 2 Porcupamons, as well as 2 Marcus Daemons. And the reason for that is because opponents who know they're going up against Royal Knights will usually have cards like, Solarmon, whose whole thing is while he's on the field, play costs can't be reduced, right? So he's a floodgate, right? But he's a floodgate on a body. Play costs can't be reduced while he's on the field, So of course that basically ruins the entire Royal Knight strategy, right? Because the entire point is to have reduced play cost. But things like cards like Porcupamon and Marcus Damon specifically either delete level 3 Digimon or reduce Digimon's DP or their power to minus 3000, which is the standard. Those two things are the standard numbers associated with these floodgates. So floodgate Digimon like Solarmon or Gazimon are they're level threes, and they usually level threes are like that. Usually have around 3000 DP or so. So those are both ways of deleting floodgates so that the Royal Knight player can keep going. You know, so I have those in there. I also have the two Sistermons, Sistermon Blanc and CL. I don't have a third one in there. I don't have the third one, but I have Blanc and CL for some general tech stuff. I haven't gotten much use out of CL yet. Let me look at her again. I haven't gotten much use out of CL yet, but I have gotten use out of Blanc. Where is she? Nope, that's Omekamon. Omekamon is a whole other thing. He lets you draw one when you play him, and then after that, well, when he gets deleted, he lets you put another Royal Knight under King Jasil for free. Where are the Sistermon? Are the completely? I completely dodged them when I was searching my deck, didn't I? I think. Yeah, there they are. So like Sistermon Blanc, when you play her, trash a card in your hand, so discard a card and then draw two. That's just amazing. And then Sistermon CL is a searcher. So, they're both just generally good cards. They're mainly just for digging through your deck and searching for other Royal Knights that you need or the removal and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been testing it online, which has had an interesting set of stories. One that I specifically remember testing it online was through I've been testing it through the Project Drasil app, not app, but well, kind of. It's a web app. So it's a browser game right now. I think they're planning on making an actual like Electron-based app for it, like a desktop app for it, which will be really nice when that comes out. I think that'll be really, among other things that they're doing with it. I've been testing it on there because at that point you have access to every card in the game, so you can test out any deck you want. And I played against one guy, and he was doing decently well. I didn't have much. I was getting a bad hand. But then he attacked my security, and the way health works in this game is that it's called a security, and your security is made up of 5 cards from your deck. So like you draw 5 cards from your hand, and then the next 5 cards from top of your deck are your security. And the goal of the game is to attack your opponent when they're at 0 security. So you have to punch through their security like 5 times at least, and then hit them one more time when they're at 0, and then you win. And so I got hit at 5 security, and so I reveal the top card of my security, and cards will sometimes have effects that go off specifically if they are revealed from the security stack. And the card that got revealed was my option card, the one that goes into my battle area and then lets me play a Royal Knight from the stack, from King Drasil's stack for free. Immediately I revealed it. He said GG and immediately left. Just like that. Like there was like a 1 second space between him typing GG in the chat and then leaving. Just like that. It was crazy. It made me laugh out loud. I will fully admit. It's like, wow, okay. Some people really don't like trying to deal with this deck, don't they? It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, yeah. I very much enjoy it. I love the Digimon TCG. I love it a lot. I think it's honestly the best card game out right now, the best TCG out right now. I love it. I love playing it. The people I played with are great. They're great people. Digimon TCG has a decently good community right now. Obviously, there is a contingent of weirdos and sweats and all that. But overall, my local scene at least is really nice. I haven't had that many bad interactions online, except for like one guy I was testing a Jellymon deck against, who the whole time he was beating me because he was playing some sort of meta deck. And and I was testing Jellymon for the first time, so I didn't even know how it worked. And so he was beating me. Um, Someone's car alarm is going off, apparently. Not my problem, whatever. They'll figure it out eventually. They always do. Um, but yeah, that happened. I don't know if the mic is picking it up. I don't think it's loud enough. It's picking it up. But yeah, the guy was doing that, and then the whole time in the chat, he's typing out, "Oh man, oh holy shit, I am so good at this. This deck is so good." And he said, he typed out, and I quote, "I am such a good deck builder. Holy shit!" Like, oh, this guy was annoying. Eventually, I just clicked concede, surrender. I just left. I'm not dealing with that for an entire game, you know? I am not dealing with that for an entire game. I imagine stuff like that is the reason why Master Duel and the games of its ilk don't usually allow for text chat, because they don't want guys like that constantly just spamming the chat with, "I am so good. I am so good at this. This deck is so good. I am such a good deck builder. Look at me. Look at me and my deck building skills." When, who knows? Maybe he might truly be the best deck builder out there. But at the same time, there is also an equal chance, from my perspective, that he could have just net decked it. But I have no idea. So I won't make the claim one way or the other. Just saying there's a chance for either one to be true, because I don't know, obviously. But yeah, that's been my experience with Digimon TCG right now. I love it. I love playing it. I'm going to locals more. It's really gotten me out there and honestly socializing more. I really needed something like this, honestly. It's helped me get out of just constantly being at the computer all the time, even if it's only on occasion for, card games. But this is the thing with card games, physical card games. The fact that they force you to go and interact with a person, not just like, play against them or anything. You have to interact with them. You have to talk to them, right? So you do have to learn to be an amicable, decent person when talking to someone to be able to integrate into a card game community properly. I think a lot of people in certain other card game communities have a bit of a problem with people not learning that. I won't name names, but some card games have certain reputations for that. Again, won't name names, but if you're into card games, you know what they are. And of course, there's always going to be that kind of person, those types of people, in every card game community, in every community in general. But, generally speaking, card games do force people to be more sociable, just by the fact that you have to interact with the person while playing the card game. And I think especially with Digimon, with the fact that Digimon is much slower, it has helped that, and it has helped me a lot with socializing more, getting to know far more people in my local area and all that. Because I will admit, I am very much an introverted, computer-based person. I am a nerd through and through. I find myself functioning better with computers than I do people. And most of the friends that I have made are people from across the country and sometimes across the world, most of which I haven't gotten the chance to meet in person yet. I do have plans to meet plenty of my friends in person, hopefully, at some point. I know a few of them have plans to eventually converge on me during a convention, which I bet will be pretty fun. I have met one of them in person, a man by the name of Strongthony, who I believe on YouTube is a phone lamp lover. He made a video that went viral a while back that I think I saw a long time ago before I ever met him. At least I think I did. It looked familiar. But yeah. You look him up. He's a cybersecurity guy. He's got some cool stuff going. Look him up. He's cool. I met him in person. He dropped by my city for a little bit. He got high immediately. Saw a very weird interaction with a couple and then got hungry. We saw some weird things. We saw a guy dressed up as 02 doing feet pics in public for what I would only assume was OnlyFans. So that was a weird experience, and I'm going to swiftly move on now. Yeah, Digimon TCG, really good. Oh yeah, something else about Digimon TCG. We're 30 minutes in here. This is a firmly Digimon TCG themed episode. Cause wow, you get me talking about Digimon and I go on tangents after tangents. But what was I thinking? Oh yeah, the fucking no. I had it for a second. I had it for a second, then I blinked. I blinked and I lost it. Oh fuck, what was it? What the fuck was it? No. No, I've lost it. No. No, 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 no. No, no, no. No, what was it? It was something cool. It was something cool. Something cool. Digimon TCG. Something cool. Something cool. Why is that there? Digimon TCG. Oh, right. I have emailed various YouTubers now, YouTubers, streamers, etc., who are also card game players, from Magic to Yu-Gi-Oh, in the hopes that maybe at some point one of them might recognize, might take the not recognize me, but take the chance with me and be willing to do one of those card game collabs. I don't know why. I am personally very fascinated by the videos of card game players trying to judge cards from other card games as well as learn how other card games work. I'm really fascinated by those videos. And now that I'm into the Digimon TCG, I've made that Digimon deck profile thing. I really want to do one for the Digimon TCG because I know Taste of Victory, he was a decently sized Digimon YouTuber. He exploded pretty recently. Um, I know he's done a few with some Yuki tubers, some Pokemon YouTubers, something like that. I have seen those, but I want to try and expand to more people that I am aware of, and hopefully see if any of them respond. I have emailed a number of them over a certain time span, and I'm hoping at some point one of them will get to me and be interested in the idea because I genuinely think Digimon is a really good card game to do these types of videos with because Digimon is so wildly different from Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic or Pokemon. It is so wildly different from standard card games that I think it would be really interesting to try and get people who play the more traditional bigger card games to try and figure out how it works and try and see if they can figure out how good cards may be, right? So I really like the idea. I think it's really interesting. I'm hoping one of these people responds at some point. Or who knows, maybe someone watching this has a contact with one of these YouTubers. Maybe, maybe someone can help me out. Maybe making this desire public through a video will make things easier to figure out a collab with somebody. Who knows? But yeah, that's all I've been doing and dealing with as far as the Digimon TCG goes. It's a subject that I love a lot. I'm very passionate about it. I started playing at the beginning of this year, like January 2023. So it's been almost a year since I started playing the game now. And I'm sticking with it. I really like it. I really enjoy it. Not only is it nostalgic, because I used to be really into Digimon as a kid, but it's just genuinely a really good card game, and I really hope Bandai gives it more attention. I really, really hope. But yeah, that's the Digimon card game. Uh, I'll probably give you updates over other podcast episodes about what I'm doing Digimon related and all that because I really am just continuously playing this game. That's how it works. It's a continuous living card game and all that, right? They're constantly adding new cards, etc., etc. But yeah, so that's my thing with Digimon card game. A nice little Japanese card game based off a Japanese media property that the Western fans of said media property had to effectively bully Bandai into finally bringing over to the West because ever since Digimon Fusion and Cross Wars, Digimon has been not Digimon Bandai has been scared shitless of bringing Digimon over to the West again because Fusion and Cross Wars were bad and they did horribly as a result. And so ever since, Bandai has been terrified of bringing Digimon over to the West again because they don't think it's because Fusion and Cross Wars were bad. They think it's because Digimon just isn't as popular as it used to be in the West, which is true to some extent, but there is still avid interest for Digimon in the West. There is avid interest in Digimon in the West. That is a lot of S's. Um, both in the form of nostalgia as well as current fans who are trying to get their hands on more Digimon media and stuff to enjoy, right? So hopefully Bandai will see that Digimon is becoming bigger and bigger and will give it the attention it deserves. I hope. I really, really hope. But yeah, on the subject of Japanese games and Japanese companies, however, I am currently in the process of learning Japanese, actually. It's a very casual affair, I should point out. I'm not like going through, a whole lesson plan or anything like that. Um, there's a YouTube playlist from a Japanese teaching group that I am following, and I need to get back to watching the videos of again. Rolling through Duolingo, which I know, Duolingo has a reputation as far as language learning is concerned. But if you're just a casual learner and you're just trying to slowly pick things up over time, and especially if you're the more inquisitive type who's keen on like picking up patterns in things, Duolingo can be very useful. But Duolingo, as far as learning actual words goes, Duolingo is not that good. It's not that good as far as learning actual specific words and, well, not words, but sentence structures, right? Learning actual casual sentences and stuff like that, it's not the best. But if you want to teach yourself, say, the alphabet and slowly pick up on the sort of patterns and logic behind languages, then I find Duolingo to be useful, because that's how my brain is wired. My brain is wired to try and pick up these patterns and learn these languages like I'm trying to solve a puzzle, if that makes sense. Right? It's like I'm trying to solve a puzzle. Oh, hey, then speaking of Strongthany, he earned a rank in Duolingo. Oh boy. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it, right? And that's sort of the lens that I take to Duolingo is I'm picking up patterns. I'm learning structures and things like that over time, and sort of, eventually as you learn these patterns, it helps you when you're engaging with, say, Japanese media. It helps you then proceed to learn proper words and sentence structures over time. Like for instance, I went through, and before I went on to learn to do most of the traditional Duolingo learning stuff, I went and I went through and I essentially I went through the language part, the character part. That's what I'm thinking of, and started specifically learning hiragana and katakana first. Like I went through and started learning the characters first, so I could get a feel for what the sounds are that I should be paying attention to, and learn how to read it, right? Because once I know how to read it, then I can figure out how to actually translate those words and figure out what they mean, right? And katakana I find very interesting. The fact that they have an entirely separate alphabet that is not actually different. Like, katakana is fundamentally the same thing as hiragana. It is the exact same sounds as hiragana. Katakana is entirely for writing, right? It exists, as far as I can tell, it exists entirely for writing. The entire point of using katakana in writing is to tell the reader when they should be reading the words traditionally, in like actual Japanese, hiragana, or phonetically, which is what katakana is. You use katakana when you are speaking phonetically. Like if you're saying America in Japanese, they just say America, but they spell it in katakana to indicate that you are supposed to be saying it phonetically. America, right? That's the way they're going about it. And so because of that, the characters all have, it's the exact same sounds, just with new characters attached to it, right? And so I find this stuff very interesting. I find it very interesting. I like learning this stuff in the way that I'm sort of solving a puzzle, right? I learn the logic, I learn the patterns, I pick up how it all works, It's very interesting to me. I know that's very much a me thing. Like, my brain is just structured in this very specific way, and not everyone's brain is structured like that, right? Not everyone's brain is structured like that, but mine is, and I think it's really cool. I think I think this way of learning things is really cool, and I hope more people try to pick up on that. I need to watch more videos that teach you Japanese in a more proper way, but I do think that taking Duolingo in this way can help a lot. I do think it can help a lot. So, yeah, hopefully, anyone who's feeling hesitant about trying to learn a language, whether it's Japanese or otherwise, maybe look at the language from that angle, right? Look at the language as a sort of puzzle to solve. You know, don't just look at words and don't just try to memorize what words mean, right? First, know the alphabet. Know what sounds you're looking for and what sounds you need to say, right? Pick that stuff up first. Then use that to then learn the words, and then as you're learning those words, don't just figure out what words and sentences mean. Figure out why they mean that, right? Figure out the pattern, the logic. What word, first off, you figure out what word means I or me, right? So if you're addressing yourself, like my name is, or I'm blank, right? You figure out what that word is, right? And then you figure out the pattern of how you address that in that language. Like in Japanese, when you're referring to say an object or yourself, you use des or desu. I think des is it might be a feminine masculine thing, because I don't know. I hear female voices specifically pronounce the U in des, whereas male voices will say des. Like, female voices will say desu, male voices will more commonly say des and sort of drop the U. Or maybe that's an accent thing. I don't know. But yeah, there is that. So you learn. So des is how you address yourself or objects, right? Well, then the next thing to figure out is, okay, so where does des usually go when you're addressing yourself or an object? Well, in Japanese, you eventually pick up the pattern where you put it at the end of a word. So, like, if you want to say, in the most basic sense, obviously, if you want to say that you are, like, I'm the Rat Man, right? In English, you would say I am or I'm first, and then the name. Japanese is the other way around. In English, if you wanted to say the Japanese version in English, you would say the Ratman I'm, or the Ratman me, right? In Japanese, it is the Ratman or TheRatMan. I don't know how you say it in katakana. Des, right? So you say like TheRatman des, or Ratu des, Rato des, right? Rato, yeah, Rato, yeah, Rato des, right? You say something like that. So you pick up those patterns over time, and it's those patterns that you should be ingraining into your head rather than just the pure meanings of the words. Obviously, try to learn what the words mean, right? So you know what words to say, but it's especially important to learn the grammar. I think that's something a lot of people miss, is they don't learn the grammar of the language. They just learn words and sentences without actually thinking about what those words and sentences mean, you know? But yeah, this is just me nerding out about languages because I'm that kind of person. I'm that kind of weirdo. One second, I gotta take a sip of my drink. Mm. Mm. All right. Yeah, wow, I've been talking for a straight 43 minutes already. All right, that's crazy. Oh boy. So yeah, that is that's me learning Japanese and all that. And the other thing to do that I've been slowly trying to do is to absorb more Japanese media in Japanese. That's the other thing to do. Obviously, when you first start doing it, you're not going to understand what anything means, right? You're not going to understand what any of the words mean. None of the sentences are going to make sense to you, obviously. You're going to have to be reading the subtitles. But if you're careful enough and you're learning Japanese on the side, you can eventually take that pattern seeking mindset and apply it to the Japanese media as well. You'll eventually start to notice patterns in the way people speak, what words they're using, and compare that to, say, the subtitles, and you'll eventually start picking up on phrases and words, and you'll start to understand how to say certain things, right? Um, Something very basic that I picked up on from playing Judgment for so long is a very common phrase that is said in Judgment a lot, probably due to the fact that it is a it's a detective game, and it's I see, which in Japanese it means more like it. I see in the context of either I see that or I understand or I get it, that kind of thing, right? In Japanese, that is naruhodo, or at least a form of it is naruhodo. I assume there's other versions of it depending on the context you're in, but the most common one that I've seen, at least in Japanese media, is naruhodo. And so it's like I picked that up not from learning what does I see or what does I understand mean in Japanese. I picked that up entirely from the context of the media I was engaging with and essentially learning patterns from matching the subtitles to what the people are saying. There were enough people saying naruhodo or versions of naruhodo in sentences that I eventually could pick up that, okay, so that means I see or I get you, right? So it's like, I know that now. I understand that one now because I engaged with Japanese media, right? So it's very interesting. So that's the other thing you need to do. So everything you should be doing, learning Japanese, do the casual Duolingo stuff, do the more serious, online lessons or whatever lessons you can pick up, and also absorb the Japanese media and do it all with that sort of pattern seeking mindset. Try to pick up on logic and patterns, get into that programmer mindset, that computer brain, right? Pick up on logic and patterns, and you'll eventually start to notice it, and you'll start to be able to recognize, you know, what words mean what and how you should be using them. So I'm not crazy good at Japanese yet, obviously. There's still a lot I need to learn, but I am making a decent I'm making a decent effort, I think, with decent progress, at least as far as a casual learner is concerned. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting subject, and hopefully, if you've been hesitant about trying to learn a language, maybe that will give you some confidence in attempting to learn it by trying to do the techniques that I have, even though the techniques that I've been doing are more subconscious because it's just how my brain is wired. So yeah, hopefully you do that. Um, One thing I have not been able, one piece of Japanese media I have specifically not been able to do in in Japanese is the Persona 5 games. I have Persona 5 Tactics as well as Persona 5 Strikers, and I've been sort of flip flopping between the two lately because they're two very different games. One of them is a Dynasty Warriors clone, the other one is a Fire Emblem style clone almost, right? Or at least inspired by those games. Maybe not clones, but inspired by, right? Two very different ones. So depending on how I'm feeling, I might pick up one or the other. And I have tried listening to them in Japanese, or at least I've tried listening to Strikers in Japanese. I don't think I've been able to do Tactica in Japanese. I think I tried changing the language settings for Tactica in Japanese, but it wouldn't let me. And I don't know why. Maybe I have to do it on the main menu. But I tried listening to it in Japanese. I tried sticking with it, but oh man. This is a situation where the Japanese voice acting is significantly worse than the English. The English voice acting for Persona 5 is so much better. So much better than the Japanese voice acting. Honestly, the Japanese voices, they either sound completely out of place for their given character. Like Yusuke, I don't know. Japanese Yusuke just doesn't sound right to me. He really doesn't. And then on the flip side, sometimes they'll just sound the exact same. Like a lot of the female characters, a lot of the girl characters will sound, I don't want to say female, that sounds weird. A lot of the girl characters, they'll sound the exact same. Morgana is a little grating to listen to. You know, most of it just doesn't sound right in Japanese. I don't know. I feel like the English voice actors do a far, far better job than the Japanese ones for her Persona 5. I don't know about the same thing for Persona 4 or 3 or anything like that. I've only tried it with Persona 5, and specifically the Persona 5 spin-offs. I don't know about the original game, but I assume it's the same voice actors, because it's also the same voice actors for the spin-offs. So I assume they got the same guys. So, yeah, the Japanese voice acting for Persona, haven't been able to do it. Just sounds wrong. Sounds wrong. Morgana sounds grating in Japanese. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of Ultraman. A lot of Ultraman. I've been getting into Ultraman because I was on a nostalgic kick for a little bit. Because I basically rediscovered Ultraman through Ultraman Z, Ultraman Z as he's called. I don't know how. I think he got recommended to me at some point. I think I recalled like Ultraman theme songs or no. I was getting back into the Ultraman anime, the 3D anime one, which Ultraman fans are very not liking. They don't like it, or at least in the sense that they don't like it as Ultraman. I've seen the consensus appear to be that it's all right on its own, but it's not Ultraman. But either way, it basically helped me rediscover Ultraman, and then through that I started looking up, okay, what's Ultraman like now? You know, the actual show, not just the spin-off stuff. And so I started watching Ultraman Z, and it's really good. I really enjoyed it, and I was watching it in English. I think I swapped to Japanese occasionally. No, I was watching it in Japanese. No, I think it was dubbed. I might, if it was dubbed, I don't remember if it was dubbed. I think it was, yeah. Yeah, no, it was dubbed. I was watching it dubbed. And that got me back into Ultraman, sort of rediscovering Ultraman since I watched the English dub of the original 1966 Ultraman as a very small child. And the reason I did watch it back then was because my dad watched it when it aired in English when he was a kid. Because he's a very firm Gen Xer. I think they might have re-aired it a couple times on some obscure TV channels, the English dub at least. And so my dad became familiar with Ultraman as a little kid. He sort of dropped off it as he became a preteen and so on. Because he obtained this, like, uncanny valley thing for special effects, where he just couldn't tolerate special effects that weren't, like, Star Trek or Star Wars level at some point. Which, I get it. Looks weird. Ultraman looks very bizarre. Right? Looks very weird as far as special effects go. But it is much better now. It is much, much better now. And so Ultraman Z was great. And then I started watching the other stuff. I started watching Trigger, which I know a lot of people hate Trigger. A lot of people seem to hate Trigger, but I think it's fine. It's fun. And then I've just been slowly engaging with more Ultraman media, and a lot of that media I've been engaging with in Japanese, because most of it is in Japanese. I sort of I flip back and forth, I flip-flop between watching the current show, Ultraman Blazar, in English versus Japanese, because I'm gotten used to the English voices, but at the same time, the Japanese voices are good. They are good, and the subtitles are pretty good and all that, so, I'm sort of swapping between those. And it's all, I'm trying to engage with more and more Japanese media, and trying to engage with more of it in Japanese to try and pick up as much as I can. Which is, of course, one of the key things to do if you're trying to learn a language, right? Because I do have an eventual goal of visiting Japan at some point. Visiting Japan, especially with my mom. Obviously, if me and my mom go, my dad's coming along. It's gonna be a family trip. Uh, it's gonna be a family trip, obviously. My dad would be very interested in going to Japan as well. But me and my mom especially want to go to Japan at some point because we have a familial connection. Not that we're Japanese. We're not. We're not Japanese at all. None at all. We don't have that. We don't have familial connection in the sense that we have family there or anything like that. We have a familial connection in the sense that my granddad fought in World War II. I won't specify, but he fought on the Pacific. He fought on the Pacific Front, and so of course my granddad on my mother's side, so her biological dad, not the granddad that I grew up with, but the granddad who is my biological granddad. He fought on the Pacific Front, fought against the Empire, that whole thing, which feels really weird to say with all seriousness. My granddad fought the Empire. It sounds like a Star Wars character talking, right? But it's true. He fought the Japanese Empire. So saying he fought the Empire is a completely logical sentence. Obviously you should be specifying Japanese in that context, but if you're talking World War II, Pacific, Empire, the assumption is going to be Japan, right? So yeah, he did that, and then the miraculous thing is he didn't resent the Japanese. He fell in love with the Japanese. He fell in love with Japan. The people, the culture, the language, all of it. He fell in love with the place. And so I want to eventually go visit that country with my mom, especially. Sort of see the country that her dad, my granddad, fell in love with so deeply back in the 50s, roughly the 40s, 50s. See firsthand the country he fell in love with so much as a sort of almost spiritual connection thing for him. And of course, to also see the nerd stuff, the geek stuff, the video game stuff, obviously. I am still a nerd at heart. I want to see the pop culture stuff. I want to see all the crazy, fun stuff that you can do there. But I also want to see the traditional stuff. I want to see the history. I want to learn the language. I want to engage with people who are in Japan. I want to engage with the Japanese. Maybe try and make a few friends while I'm there. I want to really try and use that as a chance to stretch my wings. Whenever I get the chance to actually do it, I want to take that chance to be able to spread my wings and really try something there. Try something different. Do something that I've never done before. I want to try the food. I want to try the language. I want to engage with the way they do things there, right? As best as I can, as an American, both out of respect for their country and their culture and language and everything, as well as respect to my granddad, who I never got to meet, right? It's a whole thing. I didn't realize the end of this podcast episode would get so sappy, but I hope you enjoyed learning all of this about me. That's kind of the point of this podcast. You get some behind the scenes talk with me about, the stuff I'm doing, off camera, on camera, what my plans are, more of who I am as a person, that kind of stuff. And I hope you enjoy what you're learning here from this podcast, because honestly, it does feel kind of good just talking into the microphone for about an hour about whatever I feel like at the time, right? It does feel kind of good. I hesitate to record when I start thinking about like, oh, I should record a new episode or something. I hesitate. I procrastinate a little bit. But that's just the hesitant brain talking to being like, am I really in the mood for it? And am I really going to be able to get everything I want out of it? That kind of thing, right? But, once I start talking, once I start getting into it, then, I start getting on a roll, I start talking, things really start going off. And right now, I think it especially helps. I think it actually does help on some level right now that I don't have a co-host or a guest with me at the moment because there's no one to stop me. You know? There's no one to stop me from just continuously going on and on and on these tangents of mine. There's just nothing stopping me from going further and further and further and further. You know? There's no one to comment, no one to tell me, hey, we should refocus the topic. No, this is my podcast. This is my format. The topic is whatever I feel like the topic is at the time. If I want to go on a tangent about a given topic, I will go on that tangent as much as I want. And so I hope you, the listeners, enjoy this format. I hope you all enjoy the way I structure this podcast. I hope you enjoy listening to me, and just enjoy the subjects that I'm talking about, right? You know, I hope you enjoy it all. I hope you really, really do. This is another experimental format change for me, and honestly, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really liking it. And so obviously I hope you do too. And so if you do enjoy this, please, I don't say this often, but feel free to share it around. Like it, comment, share it on other social media, show it to your friends, introduce me to people, right? I want to make connections. I don't just want to make connections. I want to make connections. I want to see people engaging with my stuff, and I want to be able to make connections with other people in this sort of realm, other people who want to talk about stuff. Just stuff in general, whether it be video games, tech, culture, history, language, I just want to make connections with people, right? So, who knows? Maybe sharing it around, something will happen. I don't know. But regardless, I'm rambling. We're about an hour in now. I think that's good to cut it there. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Rat Lab podcast, and I will see you all later.